Hey everybody, welcome to the Purpose People podcast. Finally, I've got Paul from Presents on the sofa. Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome, and great to be here.
Yeah, so been a long time to get you on the sofa, and obviously I've known you for many years, obviously connecting and traveling and all kinds of crazy stuff. But when you were at school, what was the goal in life?
My goal in life in school was to be a professional snooker player. Okay. That was my goal in life. I hated school. I just couldn't, sit down there and learn. I got itchy feet, and I got looked out the window. The only time in school I enjoyed was sports days.
Yeah,
which I was like the school champion in running. You know, I was good at running.
What were you, long distance, short distance?
Short distance.
Okay.
When I was like 10 years old, I was always the school champion in junior school and in high school.
Okay.
And I don't know where I got my running skills from, because my mum and dad weren't athletes at all, but I was good at running.
Yeah.
And my height fame was running against Colin Jackson in finals at Mainley Stadium when I was like 9-10 years old in junior school.
Okay.
And then I used to face Colin Jackson, Olympic world champion, in rugby. So I would play on the wing for my St. Tyler's High School, and he would play on the wing for Llanedden High.
Right.
And so, if they give us the ball to go and run, years later, I found out I was running against Olympic world champion, trying to catch him, and he was trying to catch me. So that was my sort of love sport, love football, enjoyed rugby as well on the wing because, I was fast. But that was my sort of, my education really. I wanted to get out of school as fast as I could. I left school at 16 in the January. I was due to take my exams in May. I didn't take any exams. I wanted to get out, and also I wanted to work. I wanted to earn money, and when I was in school, I used to work on the market stalls. I used to work in town selling wrapping paper and slippers and sellotape for my friend's uncle, and I used to earn money on a weekend doing that. So I was always sort of quite entrepreneurial as a young kid, just to make money, because it was a way of life. My parents got divorced when I was 13 years old, and that was a tough upbringing when we had didn't have much at all.
Yeah.
So you had to survive. And I learned that if you had to, to survive in life, you had to do it yourself, and no one's going to give me anything. So I had to go and work and earn money at 13, 14 years old.
So you're doing your sport, you're running around, and then you're working at the same time. And obviously, academia probably wasn't the priority in anything.
No, I used to work on Saturdays and Sundays in town.
Yeah.
And then my grandparents sold the restaurant in Penarth, and then they did the market stalls. They used to sell, T-shirts and lighters and pens and novelty things to make a living, and I used to go there on Saturdays and Sundays with them.
Okay.
And I used to watch some of the greatest salespeople from the market stalls selling.
It's a weird one because it's not talked about a lot, is it? I remember years ago, when I was around secondary school age, parents used to go to the market, and you'd walk around and you hear everybody, and there's those people that, charismatic enough to draw a crowd, and there were others that just weren't getting anybody in. So yeah, that's quite interesting.
It was the old classic where if you watch Only Fools and Horses and you watch Del Boy, draw a crowd and entice people and say, right, this is the offer of the day and you've got to buy it, and everyone will be chucking their money. I want one and all that. And, I used to sit there and learn from these 14, 15-year-olds and I wasn't entrepreneurial at all. I was just it was a matter of surviving and how to make money. And And when I seen these guys do it and watch my grandparents do it, and see the art of communication and talking to people and selling products, and then learning from that as well. And also just remember now when we had our restaurant on Penarth Seafront, to make money, because there used to be an amusement arcade at the end of the street, and where you go there and play like penny Space Invaders machines and all that, and we'd get pocket money like a couple of pounds or something. I thought, well, I need more than that. So how can I make money? And I said to my grandparents, listen, why don't I just sell ice creams outside the restaurant? So we set up this table, put like a tea cloth over it and a sheet over it. We had these like 3 tubs of ice cream, got a box of Cornettos, got some flakes. I was selling ice creams outside the restaurant, and it would be shut in the day, open in the night. And we sell ice creams for like 50 pence.
Yeah.
And so I used to make money selling ice creams to the general public, walking past the restaurants. So I was always sort of like entrepreneurial, even at that age, to make money, but I never thought I would bring that into my life going forwards, but yeah, that was my young sort of childhood days, where if the school teachers were looking for me, if I wasn't in school, I'd either be on 2 places. I'd either be on the school sports fields or down the snooker hall. And that's where I spend my life.
Yeah, so that's quite an interesting one. So obviously you're doing a lot of physical activity, a lot of running and stuff like that, but you somehow fall into snooker. So why snooker out of all the things that you could?
The reason I fell into snooker is I used to, my uncle, who was into luxury cars, selling high worth cars, and he used to live like about a mile away, and I used to hang around with my uncle, and he used to take me to snooker halls, and he used to go there and go and play poker on the tables. And he said, I'm going to play poker today, and do you want to watch me? I watch him play poker and all that. And then there was snooker clubs he used to go to, and he used to go and play snooker. I used to watch him, and I thought, well, let me see how I can have a go at this, and I started playing, and I wasn't very good at the beginning, but I used to play my uncle, and he used to like thrash me and all that, and all of a sudden I used to like knocking breaks of like 20 and 30, thinking, oh, I can pick this up. Yeah. And all of a sudden I started beating him, like thinking, oh wow, so, and then I got hooked on snooker, thinking, oh, this is a brilliant sport, and I got quite good at it. I was knocking 50s and 60 breaks, and and be quite competitive when I left school. And then I used to play in a snooker league as well, and at snooker teams. And I thought, well, this is Jimmy White was my hero, and obviously Stephen Henry and Steve Davis and all that. And I thought maybe one day I could be like them, like a snooker player. But I realised when I was like 17, I think, hang on a minute, you can't earn much money doing this, so I better go get a real job, and which I did. Like in those days, I went to the careers office, and they said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "Oh, I don't know." I said, "Oh, what was my first job?" And my first job is I used to work for a company selling pop. It used to be Alpine Pop, which was a distribution company up the road in Pentwyn, and they used to sell pop to all the houses.
Oh, okay.
And if you were 16 years old, you probably could get a job there to give you a break, and I used to get something like, 60, 70 quid a week, selling pop to the mums at the houses. And I thought, I quite like this. And I
was that in the days where they would give you back the glass bottle afterwards, and then you'd retop it up?
They would like give us the empty bottles.
That's it.
And you get like 5 pence commission. And I thought, well, that was my first job when I left school, thinking, right, I better earn some money. So I started at Alpine Pop, and I used to go and talk to all the mums, I say, oh, you don't want one or two, you want to have like 3 or 4, So I said, I was quite good at selling the bottles of pop to the mums on the doorstep. And then I lasted 2 weeks because I was lifting a crate of pop, and one of the bottles exploded.
Oh.
And a bottle hit me right in the mouth there. And I had about 10 stitches in there. And my mum said, right, that's it. You ain't going back there at all, because you could have had your eye out. You could have got killed, So my mum was like pretty overprotective of me as well. So
you would have got compensation and stuff.
Well, I did. I did get compensation. Okay. Yeah. Funny enough, I did, and I got about £1,000 compensation.
Oh wow!
Which, like 16 years old, was was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then I said, well, okay, what do I do then? And then I went to the careers office. They said, right, what do you want to do? And they said to me, do you want to join the YTS scheme?
Yeah.
And I said, yeah. So what schemes have you got? So, well, you can do this, you can do that. What's your passion? What are you into and all that? I said, oh, I don't know. I said, I like clothes and all that. He said, well, do you want to do a building job, or do you want to do a painting and decorating? I thought, painting and decorating sounds quite a good job. So they said, well, you're working at the local hotel, which was up the road. I thought, I'm going to go far for that. So I started painting and decorating. And I was there for about 6 months. And I never touched a paintbrush in 6 months. Thinking, hang on, what's all this painting and decorating like? I see myself as painting these walls and painting this and painting that. And in the end, I thought, why am I wasting my time here? But what they were teaching me was the groundwork. You had to do all the scrubbing and rubbing and planning and taping and all that. I thought, I don't want to do all that. I want to do like the painting job. So I went back to my careers office and said, I don't like being a painter and decorator. This is not for me.
Yeah.
And then they said to me, so what do you want to do? I said, well, what else have you got? They said, well, what else do you like in life? I said, well, I like dressing smart. I like dressing nice clothes. Oh, we got a job for you in Alders of Cardiff, which is like a department store. And I started in Alders on £25 a week. And I remember going into Alders and they said, right, you can go and work on the toy department. That was my first job. And I went and met the manager of this apartment and had a chat with her, and it said, welcome. And then I was there for about 3 months. I said, toys doesn't really do it for me with all the kids and all that.
Yeah.
I'm more into like men's clothing. So I had a transfer to men's, and I was working on the Lee and Levi's departments.
Oh, nice.
Selling clothes. And I thought, this is my style. This is what it's all about. And then I did my year's apprentice, £25 a week. Give my mum £5 of it. I had to buy my bus pass and everything. And I was 17 years old, and they took me on, saying, right, okay, you can work on the menswear department full time, and work for Levi's and Lee jeans, casual wear. Went brilliant. But when I was working on there was this guy. He's probably passed away now, but he worked on the suit department there, and he was in his like 70s and 80s. But he was like a master of sales, and I could watch him. And if he started talking to someone, they would rarely walk out the shop without anything. They would buy something off him. He was a master, and I would watch him every day. His art, the way he spoke to people, his mannerisms, his sales techniques and all that. And I thought, this guy is like, he's like a living legend. He's like, brilliant sales guy. And he had a partner with him as well, who was, both switched on guys. They were like, classic sales guys. If they got their claws into you, there's no way you're walking out the shop. They'd sell you something. Yeah. And I used to watch them, and they were masters at it. And I learned from these guys. They're both in their 60s and 70s. And they were master sales guys.
And that's a lesson in itself, isn't it? Just to watch the old masters, we kind of like poo-pah people with experience, and it's always, what's the next flashy thing? But actually getting around people that have been in the industry for 30, 40 years, you'll learn more off of that than you will anywhere else,
Oh, 100%. And I just started out my career, started at a new role and everything. And then we got hit with a huge devastation. They sold the store. Right. They sold the store for development, which came on to be St. David's 1 and St. David's 2.
Wow.
So they sold the store. Everyone was made redundant. I think my highlight of that store there, I left the store as the snooker champion, because I'd won. We used to have a tournament every year.
Yeah.
And I was the last guy to win Alder's snooker competition
Right.
of all the guys there. So I won it. So I had the big trophy, and it had all the past winners of all the years on there. And I think I
right.
still got that in the house. And well, you're the last champion, so you could you took it home.
It's a bit like Liverpool in the Champions League.
But that was my experience there, and it was an amazing experience. I was 17. I thought, well, okay, I've just been made redundant. What do I do? And then I went to the House of Fraser store, which was Howells of Cardiff, very prestigious department store, recently just closed down a few years ago. And I went to the store there, and I said, listen, any jobs going on in the menswear department? Spoke to the department manager, Miss Sanger, and she was a lovely lady, old school, classic, a bit like Margaret Thatcher, sort of like, yeah. Presence and everything. And I said to the guys there, any jobs on any of the menswear departments at all? I said, oh, by the way, there's a role. So I spoke to this department manager. I forgot her name now. She used to work for Dash Man, Dash Women, which was a bit like Benetton products. Benetton.
Yeah.
And it was all casual wear and track suits and smart wear and everything, sort of casual wear. And she said, we got a part-time job, 20 hours. I went, right, okay, well, I'm looking for full-time. So she said, oh, we got that going. I said, well, okay, well, if I take something, then I can prove myself that I can get a full-time job. Yeah. Anyway, I started the role in there. I was probably there for about a month. And the manager was leaving. She'd handed a notice in. So there was a manager's role there. Now, I'm 17 years old. And no managing experience, just sales experience, that's all. So I said to the area manager at the time, I said, listen, give me a chance. I'm 17 years old. I know I can do a better job than the manager. Well, you just come out of school. Yeah. You're 17 years old, and she was about 24 years old, 25. She had about 8 years experience on me. Yeah. And she was a manager, and she was going to somewhere else. So anyway, they said, okay. And my sales were good working part-time in House of Fraser. So they said, okay, due to what you're doing, we're going to give you a 3-month trial. So 17 years old, they gave me a trial. I passed the trial, and I was the youngest manager in House of Fraser at 17 years old as a concession manager.
Wow.
17 years old. Excuse me. And I always remember every Monday at 2:00, there used to be a manager's meeting upstairs in the boardroom. And it'd be a big, massive boardroom, all the department managers of a department store. You imagine how many managers there of concessions, be about 30, 40, 50 managers. And I always remember walking in there, this 17-year-old kid in a tracksuit with trainers on, and everyone's looking at me going, what are you sat in this room for, And they said to me, excuse me, young man, I think you're in the wrong place. I said, oh, no. No, I said, I'm a manager. Who are you a manager of? I said, I'm a manager of Dash Man on the menswear department. Oh, right, okay. Oh, welcome to the room and all that. And we go through the figures of the store and the departments and everything. And I was there for about a year. And I did very well there, and used to go to London and everything to all the meetings. And then I got approached to go and work for a suit company selling men's suits in Foster's in Cardiff.
Remember Foster's, yeah.
And my sister was assistant manager there. And they said they're looking for a concession manager to sell suits. Didn't have a clue about suits at all. All I remember about suits is watching these two old boys.
Yeah, back in the day.
In Alders selling suits. I thought, well, maybe I could do suits. So anyway, I went into the store and met the store manager. I said, yeah, okay. And met the area manager for the company. I said, oh, let's have a go. Anyway, I convinced myself that I could do this job. They gave me the job. It was good money. And then I worked my way up from Foster's. Then we had concessions in Burton's, and we had concessions in Top Man. And then I progressed then to be area sales manager. And then about 3-4 years later, I was area manager for the southwest of England, Wales, and London. And I was an area manager at 22 years old. 22 years old I was.
So that particular role then was, I guess, being area manager, and that is that what kind of like started to open the doors to sort of like the names and the famous people, like because you were engaging with football managers and stars and things like that. Is that where that big journey began to build?
I think the reality change for me is that I remember my first ex-wife coming into the store and saying, "I got some news to tell you." "What's that?" "I'm pregnant." I was 21 years old.
Right.
And it was like a big reality check. I'm going to be a dad at 21 years old. Nothing planned, nothing like, I thought, right, okay. And it was a big wake-up call. And it was a case of, "Paul, you got to provide for a baby, right? Yeah. A boy or a girl." And I went, "Right." And he was right. "Well, you need to pull your finger out and you need to start earning some big money." And I always set this goal. In my head that I wanted to be an area manager before I was 25, with earning 25,000 a year and a nice company car. That was like my dream and my goal, and I did achieve that. And then I was a dad at 25 with 2 kids at the time, and that's what inspired me and motivated me, because it sort of went back to my childhood. That when we grew up, like when I was 13, 14, my parents got divorced. Times were tough and everything. And I thought, well, I don't want to bring my kids up with a tough, lifestyle and everything. And luckily, my mum met a brilliant, husband who was my stepdad, Phil, and he provided for us. But, in the early days, it was tough. We had a tough upbringing. And I've always been, forever grateful for what he did as I grew up, as I got older, how he brought us up and supported us and gave us the good lifestyle that we had. And when I was a dad, I thought, right, that's it. You've got to knuckle down. You've got to earn some great money, and you want to bring your kids up that they don't want to want for anything.
Yeah.
And that's what my pure inspiration and motivation came from, was to give the kids whatever they wanted in life. And I bought my own property when I was 21 years old. Wow. In Sully, which is one of the best locations in Cardiff, which was a great moment for me, a proud moment. And that's what inspired me, was me being a dad, that I had to perform and deliver, the lifestyle for those kids.
So you've gone from sort of young guy in the middle of a room full of pros, if you like, and then all of a sudden now you're the area manager. So you got staff, you got people, you got stores you're looking after, and then we often on our drives backwards and forwards from London, but then you started meeting like the Welsh national team and people like this. When did that sort of like come into the story?
That came into when I was a manager for a company called SWJ, Stonewall Jackson. They went on board, started Envy. They had all the concessions in Top Man, Burton's and Foster's, River Island. They built up a very successful business. And then I left that business. Then I went to be store manager and then area manager for Sirius Uterio in Cardiff and the southwest and South Wales of England. And it was only when I got approached to go and be the store manager for Suit You in Cardiff. Went into the store and smashed the figures. Luckily, I was always pretty good at sales and marketing and delivering, high achievements in all the companies I work for. And I went to work for a company called Suit You. Then I got promoted to area manager, and then the company got bought out by a private equity company, and then the owner of that company from Suit You It was a guy called Brian Brick, and him and his brother sold the company. I think it was for about 33 million. And I was one of the top boys in national, company trainer, area manager. They had something like, I don't know, 100 stores in the UK, and they'd sold the company, and then the owner of that company went on to be the CEO of Moss Bros.
Right, got you.
And then the company that we used to work for Suit Shoe, there's a long story about that, but I won't go into it. The guys who took over knew one of my ex-girlfriends and knew about me, who was dating her, and I had to make a point about that because it was something about what he used to do with her and all that. So he knew his days were numbered to what I knew about him. He wasn't this guy who had this great multimillionaire image based in Cardiff.
Right.
And obviously I knew his background, and he didn't like that at all.
Right.
So I know all my days were going to be numbered with this company. Anyway, I left this company and met up with my previous company, who's now the CEO, and he said, we want you to come on board for Moss Bros. And I went, fine. So I want you to manage the biggest store in the UK, which was based in Cardiff. And same again, we trebled the figures, what the store was doing. And the key was to take most of the best managers from Suit Shoe to Moss Bros.
Right.
And we did. We took all the best managers, put, shares at the time were like 12 pence, a share. And I think they trebled within a year because the take-ins we were doing in Moss Bros rocketed. And, and that was a lot of the top boys come and worked in the stores all around the country, and grew it massively.
So it's quite if you look at your background, that you kind of like the competitive thing was obviously snooker, but there was a hell of a lot of competition in sales, and you had observed, if you like, grassroots sales in a market stall to then retail to prove your worth, isn't it?
Sure.
So now you're on the cutting edge of, normal sales. You're having to think on your feet. You're constantly growing, and then you're responsible for other people. So how did that, working for corporates, making them look good and growing, whatever, how did that transition more into the entrepreneurial world? And what was the big difference?
I think the most important thing is I was always entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
So when I went to work for Moss Bros, the goal was, and also Moss Bros at the time owned Hugo Boss as a brand. It was a franchise at the time. And the goal is how do I get the name out there without relying on customers walking through the door?
Yeah.
And I thought, well, so we dressed Cardiff City, we dressed Swansea City, we dressed Glamorgan Cricket, we dressed the Welsh FA, I dressed most CEOs and MDs of businesses for the last 10 years, 15 years in Cardiff, because I knew most people. Yeah. And then I sort of got commercial, working with people, thinking, if I can supply, and that's right, that was another early part of my time in my early days, is how do we get business without relying on Joe Bloggs to walk through the door? And one of the ideas we come up with is go and hit Reading, the Oracle shopping centre, and target all those businesses. So we come up with the idea. We would go to their corporate companies and set up a shop in their canteens and in their rooms to sell suits for work, and that worked a great success. But I was always thinking outside the box. I was always entrepreneurial. I wasn't just thought like an area manager, or I thought like a store manager. I always thought of, how can I get business without it coming to me? You got to go out there and make it happen yourself. Yeah. And that's where my commerciality came in, where, that's what grew me to the success in the fashion industry of being commercial, and worked on my business connections, which I didn't realize I had.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? Because you've got all these years of dealing with people every day, and you talked about you got like, you know, the different sports people and then who they're connected or whatever. So when did the sort of like penny drop then from, you know, all this retail experience, all this sales experience, now you're making connect? Where did the switch go from you can make money just out of connections? Where did that come?
The moment really changed for me is when one of my clients, one of the big restaurant chains, said, we're doing an event at the Polo event in Cardiff, which is a big event every year. We've got a hospitality box. They would be a big good client of ours, spend a lot of money, and they said, "Oh, do you want to come to an event?" I went, "Fine." Went to the event and went to see. I think there was a big football match on. I took a few of my guys there, and then I went to the Polo. I went to the toilets, walking back down down this sort of like big massive field where the Polo was going on, and then I bumped into Trace, obviously, who was the owner of Intrabiz.
Yeah,
and she stopped me on my track, saying, "I know you, don't I, from somewhere?" And I was like, "Do you?" She said, "Yeah, I know you from." I said, "I don't know if I know you at all." Anyway, started chatting. And all of a sudden, you know, I said, "Well, listen, if you're looking for, you know, clients and customers, come down to Le Monde, like, you know." So took her down there. And then obviously she told me that I run a company called Intrabiz. It's a networking company. You know, I said, like, what's all that about? Didn't have a clue what it was about, you know. And then we started dating and everything. And
so by then you had been married, got divorced, and then met Tracy, and then...
Yeah. Then I met Trace, and then I started dating Trace.
Yeah.
And then after that, you know, I was still at Moss Bros, you know, what I was doing, and you know, love the fashion industry, love the buzz of it. You know, that was it. Love fashion. That was it. Had some amazing clients, and then you know, and then there was a moment. There was a moment that sort of, there's been about 4 or 5 moments in my life which were life-changing moments. And I always remember, you know, Trace was telling me that, you know, there's this event on in London, and there's these 3 big name speakers, and she wanted to go, and I was in retail, and I said, "Oh, you know, I don't want to go." It's like, you know, I never heard of these people. I don't know, you know, who were they, you know? But she was like, "Oh, I want to go. And there's a few people going." I said, "I tell you what, I'll go just to, like, you know, just have an easy life, yeah?" So we had to get up early, 6 o'clock in the morning, and we had to go and see, there was these 3 people. One was a guy called Andy Harrington. Obviously, a lot of people know who Andy Harrington is. And I was another guy called Kevin Green. Yeah. Kevin Green was one of the UK's biggest property landlords. Right. And then there was this woman who was very high profile. She was a co-author of one of the most famous books of all time, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is Sharon Lecter.
Yeah.
And I went to this event. I was one of these guys. I sat in the audience, 500 people in the audience, listening to Andy, listening to Kevin Green, and then listen to Sharon Lecter. And then that's when that's when the light bulb moment meant. The light bulb moment meant is that Sharon was talking about the leverage of people that you know, the people that you've made connections with. Your network is your net worth. Who do you work with, who do you know will make you a fortune in life. And I went, hang on a minute, how many people do I know? How many people have I served? How many people have I got relationships with that I knew nothing about? And I still didn't even know what Trace did. She ran a networking company. What's all that about?
Yeah.
So what you do again? Well, we do events and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I still don't understand what you do. Because I never understood the word, what it meant, networking.
Yeah.
So we traveled back in the car. And I didn't stop talking all the way back for 2.5 hours in the car. Everyone in the car's going, "Oh my God, don't shut up, this Paul." And I'm thinking, now I know what she means. Now I know what the leverage of the power of your network is. Now I understand what it's about. And they all talked about it. Kevin Green spoke about it. Andy Harrington spoke about it, and then Sharon Lecter. And then about 3 months later, there was a decision that Trace said, oh, by the way, I've booked a stand to exhibit at the Chamber of Commerce business show at Cardiff City Stadium.
Yeah.
And I said, so what happens there then? She said, oh, well, you know, people exhibit there. They meet people and they do business with each other. I went, right, okay. So she paid about £1,000 to exhibit. She said, oh, not many people come to these sort of events. It's more like the exhibitors who sort of do business with each other. So I said, right, okay. So I said, well, so I was working in the retail store at the time. I said, I'll come and support you because she needed help. Set it all up. Stood on this stand all day, right? Freezing cold. There's about 80 exhibitors there. And I met about 3 people there, right? Yeah. Customers walking by. So what do you do? Well, we run IntroBiz. What's that? Oh, it's a networking company, blah, 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 right? So we exhibited there, and I met a few people there, which has got to know people. And we packed up and everything, and we sat in the car, and I turned to the side. I said, right, you just paid £1,000 for this, yeah? We can do a better show than this. I said, we're going to do a business show. And she said, how are we going to do that? I said, we can do a better job than what these guys have done. I said, we're going to do a show within 3 months. Never did a show in my life. Yeah. Never knew what I was going to do. But in my head, while I was stood on that stand the whole day, I was planning what I was going to do. Yeah. I didn't tell Trace any of it. I just told her at the end of the day in the car. So the goal was, and the plan was this, to do our own business show and to try and there was probably about 80 exhibitors there. I thought, let's go for about 40, 50 exhibitors. And the idea was, I'll tell you what, I've just met Kevin Green, a Welsh entrepreneur from The Secret Millionaire, and he's the biggest property landlord in the UK. I'm going to ask this Kevin to speak at our events, which he agreed to do. Yeah. So it was all planned. We did our first event. We had about 50 exhibitors. We had about 400 visitors there, and everyone said it was brilliant. And I went, wow, this is our first business show, and everyone's going, wow. And then I made a decision before we did this show was coming to the business into IntroBiz. Right, okay. And I said to her, right, we'll give it 1 year. If it doesn't work, I think we had about 30 members at the time. If it doesn't work in a year, I'll go back to retail. And funny, just so it happened, is I got offered a job to work for Armani in Dubai. Back in, how many years ago? And I thought, and they were paying like big money, like 60, 70,000 back in those days in Dubai. Yeah. I said, we want a top store manager for Dubai. Would I consider going to Dubai to work? And I thought, I've just committed to doing this, to work with IntroBiz with Trace. And so we did our first business show, and we did our first couple of events, and the show was brilliant. Everyone said, listen, this is like, much better than the South Wales Chamber. And then the second year, we had about 80 exhibitors, and about 800 people came. Yeah. And then the third year, we had 2 floors. We had about 120 exhibitors. We had about over 1,200 customers come, and then we sold out. And we went, hang on a minute, this is getting bigger and bigger. Yeah. And then we outsold Cardiff City 2 floors. Yeah. Then we said, right, where are we going to go? Where are we going to go from there? And then Cardiff City had a House of Sport, which was a 30,000 square foot venue just down the road. Yeah. So we said, right, we're going to book that now. So we went from there to Cardiff City 2 floors to House of Sport. We did House of Sport 1, then House of Sport 3, and they were 30,000 units. Wow. And we went, guys, we've sold out of them as well. Now we're into the thousands coming. Yeah. Now we're into like the hundreds exhibiting now. And the dream and the goal was always this: where is the biggest venue in Wales to do a big national exhibition? Yeah. And there's only one place, principal, the Motor Point Arena.
Yeah, yeah,
And that was the goal. Motor Point Arena, 60,000 square foot, double the size of House of Sport.
yeah,
3 times the price what we were paying before. And I said, that's the goal, that's the vision. And I said, right, let's go for it. And we did our first show there. We had something like 5,000 visitors, 200 odd companies there exhibiting. And we were there for about 4 or 5 years. And it was the national business, biggest show in Wales for about 7 or 8 years.
yeah. And then you started really bringing in the celebrities, didn't you? You know, the connections there to take it up a level.
The idea of the business exhibition was, and the reasons why I came up with this idea is you don't have to go to London or the NEC to see famous people or famous celebrities.
Yeah,
Let's bring it to Cardiff. Let's put Wales on the map. Let's put Cardiff on the map. I was a passionate Welsh guy that you're not going to go to London or the NEC. Let's bring him to Wales. And I was proud to be the first to bring the Dragon's Den to Wales,
Yeah.
the Apprentice winners. And then I always thought about, visualization, where, I'd watch the telly and, how am I going to get Lord Sugar there? How am I going to get Richard Branson there? How am I going to get all these sporting celebrities and these big, massive names to come to Wales? And I did. I was the first to bring the Dragon's Den, Hilary Devey, and then the Apprentice winners, and then we would bring, Sharon Lecter. We would bring, the CEOs of the WRU, the CEOs of the Welsh FA. All these sporting celebrities. We were there, for inspiration and share their stories on how they are successful in life after sports, and how to inspire the audience.
yeah, yeah,
And the big goal and the big dream was, how to, could I ever get Grant Cardone and Lord Sugar there? That was always like, the number one goal that, I've always said to people, I'm going to bring Lord Sugar to Cardiff. Yeah, really, Paul. You're really going to bring Grant Cardone? Yeah, really, Paul. They all thought, there's no chance in hell Paul's going to achieve this. And I always visualized that I would. I always visualized I'm going to do it. Even though, it was like, what's the chances of doing it? I always believed I was going to do it. And it's just that self-belief that in anything in life, you've got to believe in yourself.
yeah, yeah. So I kind of met you. I think it was you were having it was like a birthday, or a number of years you've been running.
10 years.
10 years.
10 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And
we celebrated 10-year anniversary.
That's right.
Yeah,
and that was, I think it was at Geo's, but not the one not the modern looking one. It was more the other one. And me and my brother went there, and we'd been networking in BNI, and I'd done well at it, but then it was just dying. There's a turnover, there's a shelf life to it. And somebody had invited me and said, why don't you come to Intrabiz? So I went along to a breakfast. This is a little bit different. That was, I think it was in Penarth. I think it was on the marina.
Yeah.
In there. So I went there.
That was the old PS64.
That's it.
Yeah. Stunning place. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was lovely. I thought, this is great. This is a little bit different. And it was no stood up and pitching and all that. It was more conversations. I thought, I like this. This is really good. And then we went to this thing in Cardiff, and we were there and we were looking around, and it just we were there, but we just couldn't find the right people to connect with or talk with. So we're just about to go, and then you come and said, hey, and we had our conversation, and then we were with you for about 30 minutes or whatever, and you introduced us and connected us. And I think for me that began almost like a fresh look at networking, and the fresh look of connections, because I knew it was always through the room, but what I found is that there wasn't a lot happening through the room, and yet with Intrabiz there was, because of the bigger names, bigger companies, and it didn't matter that it was in Wales. It was just that you had the right people in the room to grow our business. And I think for us that we started to pick up the odd client here and there. And then you obviously done the sugar thing, and my team were exhibiting. I was actually away on some retreat at the time, but my team went there and they come back and they said, oh, it was great and it was amazing. And I think I went the following year, the gala evening that you had, that was really cool. And so, yeah, it was great. And then the biggest thing that affected absolutely everybody, including for the industry, was essentially the pandemic kicked in. And I remember that whole thing of how are we going to do business? And I think it was, whereas Introbiz always seemed to think out the box, we're like, okay, well, we're just going to carry on online. And I think that's where we certainly accelerated within the network. And you started bringing all these connections and all these people to support the businesses from all over the world. And we just met like some incredible people like Brian Tracy,
Les
Brown, yeah, you know,
Dr. John DiMartini.
Exactly, from the secret. So all of a sudden, you're bringing all these people to give that community hope, because it was like, oh my gosh, how are we going to get through all this? And you know, for me, that just ratified what a great network, you know, that it was for us as a business to keep going and be continually impacted by people like Les Brown and people like that, just to, you know, say, look, life's not always simple, it's not always easy, but you got to keep going. And it was like, so you were being educated once a week, but you also being, all right, we can do it another week, because you know this was only meant to be 2 weeks, and then it was 5 weeks, and it was 2 months. But it was tough for you, wasn't it? Because obviously what Introbiz went through as an organisation, it was tough because you were keeping things going. But obviously,
it was like, you know, we were on the verge of massive success.
Yeah,
massive success. I remember, if like yesterday, you know, we built up the biggest independent network for nearly 8 to 10 years. We were selling franchises. We were growing really fast. We just had a brilliant first 2 months, January and February, and you know we were ready to take it globally, you know, worldwide, and as a franchise.
Yeah, you even had gone to Necker Island then.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, and we believed that it was on the verge of like massive success of what we built up. You know, working with people like Google and Microsoft and Barclays, and you know, we had hundreds of brands we were working with. And all of a sudden, you know, you're turning over nearly 6 figures, and you're going from like, you know, from next to nothing to make no money at all, because as soon as COVID kicked in, you couldn't make any money.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, okay, so what's the next best thing I can do to keep this alive? Because you can't meet face to face. The only way you can do anything is online. And I come up with the strategy: why don't I get the biggest names on the planet at the events?
Yeah.
And I did for like nearly 6-7 months. Every week we'd bring a household name on, you know, like, you know, I think when I Googled the top 20 keynote speakers in the world, I think we brought on at least half of them, or even 2/3 of them, to our events online. And it was like incredible. You know, we wouldn't charge a fortune for it. They were there to self-educate. They were there sharing their stories. But it was hard to make money because, you know, we made our money from memberships and sponsorships.
Yeah.
We couldn't do any expos at all. And then the goal really is that, you know, I remember this day, people said to me, you've just done an amazing event, the biggest show in Wales, with Grant Cardone and Lord Sugar, and 7,000 people there. You're never going to top this. You're never going to top this. And in my head, I always said, wait till you see what we got planned. Wait till you see what we got planned. And, you know, in the following year, our plan was to bring Richard Branson to Cardiff. Yeah. That was the plan. That was the goal. And obviously, you know, we got warned by the government that, you know, going forward, no big events, not going to happen. It's too big a risk. You can't take that gamble. And it was going to be, you know, a huge detriment to the business. And it was just too big a risk to take. And we just couldn't take that risk. But that was the goal. That was the plan. The plan was, you know, we'd seen Richard Branson, went to his house, took a load of clients there. Amazing experience there we had. And you know, we just done Lord Sugar, Grant Cardone. And we said, right, okay, Richard Branson's the following year plans. And he was like, you know, what do we do? And you gotta plan these things in advance.
Yeah.
Too big a gamble. Just couldn't do it with COVID. And then unfortunately, you know, I think we went about 6-7 months during COVID, And it was really a time where, you know what, I sort of excelled to what I wanted to achieve. You know, I'd done my ultimate. I thought I took Introbiz to this highest level ever, with the memberships and the show and all that, and the exhibition. And I thought maybe it's a time for a change and do something different. And that was a time where I left Introbiz.
Yeah.
Trace took over Introbiz full time. And I did my own thing. I wanted to see, what I could do.
And you obviously split as well in that process.
Yeah,
so it's quite a tough time.
Yeah, it was tough time, very tough time, and that's what going through COVID, affected the hospitality industry massively.
And I think that's what people don't recognise. Like when you say it affected the events industry, it's not just the actual events industry itself, but it affected businesses, it affected finances, it affected marriages and relationships. And you were like the classic case, it actually happened to you. But interestingly, out of all that, you then obviously getting through the whole situation, you end up, of all places, getting involved with a bunch of Hungarians.
Yeah. And the reason how I got involved with them was Peter Wilcox, who was one of our clients, with Introbiz, with his company. He was CEO of a company and he's one of our members. And I met up with Peter, and me and Peter were working on a few projects together. And he just said, listen, we've got this network with the HBBA between Great Britain and Hungary. He's the chairman of it. And he said they could do with your expertise and help for guidance between Great Britain and Hungary. And I said, listen, so I went to one of the events, thought it was brilliant. I thought that I could add value to it. And then I got offered a role as director of relationships, which was encouraging companies to come to the Hungarian embassy and to network with Hungarian businesses and London businesses and UK businesses and grow the network. And did that for over 2 years. It was an amazing experience from what I was doing. And also I wanted to get out of Wales as well. That was one of the big things.
Yeah, I think for us, we'd obviously been heavily involved with Introbiz and yourself, and obviously we carried that on with Tracy and stuff. But I think one of the things that were on our radar was that the ability to sort of like take what we had globally. And I think being part of the Hungarian-British Business Alliance, speaking at a few events and so on and so forth, really opened the doors for one of our biggest opportunities.
Yeah.
That literally, from sharing in the Hungarian embassy and then sharing out in Hungary, you kept going on at me, you must go, you must go, you must go.
100%, you got to go there.
And I shared for 2 minutes, and then I got tracked down by a Hungarian business that I'd met in the embassy in London, and then obviously we're out there in Hungary, and he said, look, we want to work with you. And that opened the door, not only in Hungary, but that opened the door for work in the US as well. And for me, that was that you're only one conversation away from like changing your entire circumstances. And I think sometimes people sort of like go, well, networking, they go along and they don't make their money immediately. And for me, it's like, well, yeah, but it is a long game and it is a long play. But if you keep changing rooms and changing the conversations, eventually you'll get to where you're meant to be. And I think for me, from the whole Introbiz world and understanding even more than I knew back then about working through the room, then going into the Hungarian environment where it's now international business and international connections, actually going out there. And we've been to Budapest now, 5 times, 6 times now. I think I'm going again with Susanna in October. But the incredible thing is that it just gave us and the team this international outlook on life that actually, yes, we were doing international business online, but actually physically going there now as well could open even more doors. So, I think just taking that risk and trying something which seems really bizarre. Why Hungarian? And I remember loads of people come to me and go, Hungarian? Yeah, why? Yeah, amazing people and amazing opportunities. And Budapest, one of the most beautiful cities in Europe. So for me, it's that ability to network and to connect is transformational to any business, and it's certainly helped Cre8ion grow and other businesses grow.
I think one of the things that what I learned, is that I always thought outside the box.
Yeah.
I never, 95% of people in Wales, stay in Wales.
Yeah.
I was always one of the 5% that, what's beyond Wales.
Yeah.
What's happening in London, what's happening in Europe, what's happening in America, Canada, Australia, Dubai. And, we were doing events in Vegas in the first couple of years when we started. So I've always done international events. We did, Europe a lot. And so for me, it was never like just, sticking to who in Wales is broadening the horizons, because, some of the biggest opportunities are, worldwide. And and that's why I wanted to grow as my international connections, not just all the people I know in Wales, is what is out there you can get by meeting people, at Richard Branson's house. The sort of people I met there was like incredible, insane. It's probably in all the events I've hosted, over 600-700 events, and traveled all around the world, the amount of people that I met at his house in that 1 week was incredible. Just household names, celebrities, superstars, and everyone there was all down to earth. And if you're in New York, if you're in America, if you're in Canada, come and stay with us. It was insane. People like, you're meeting people like, the owner of like Lionsgate, Frank Guster at the time, and Nick Faldo's there. You're playing pool, Martina Navratilova. Yeah. You're like
you're beating everybody.
Yeah, you're having cocktails with Rod Laver.
Yeah.
You're having drinking champagne with Richard and his wife and his daughter and son, and everyone's just chilled out, and and that was an amazing experience. But most of the most important things that changed my life was meeting people at events.
Yeah.
Because all these big, turning points in my life that made these things happen, they said, well, how did you get there? How did you get to meet Richard? How did you get to meet Grant Cardone and Lord Sugar and the Dragonstein and the Apprentice winners and, Jordan Belford and, all these came from going to events.
Well, that's it. And I think for me now, we'll just fast forward to now, because obviously you're involved with the sporting club, been to a few events there. We met one of our heroes, Cre8ion Studios.
Yeah.
And beginning that journey and seeing what that looks like in life it's about that, conversations create connections that then create more conversations that create more connections. And I think for me, if you're struggling work-wise or to get work in, you can always link it back to you're not having enough conversations with strangers. As simple as that.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
And, I remember, to this day is, how did you get Grant Cardone to come to the UK for the first time?
Yeah.
And, one of my good friends, good speaker, John Lee, one of the big property developers and wealth management guys, got invited to John's Christmas party in London.
Yeah.
Drove over to London, parked up in Mayfair, goes into this big, massive arena, 300 people there, all dressed up in black tie. And I walks in, didn't know anyone from Adam apart from John and a few other guys there. Met this young guy. I said, nice to meet you. What's your name? My name's Matt. Nice to meet you, Matt. Where are you from? I'm from Cardiff. I said, oh, funny enough, I'm from Cardiff.
Yeah.
He said, oh, I'm from Penarth. I said, oh, yeah. I said, I'm from like Penarth as well. What's the odds on that?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I'm always a firm believer of, the secret. You're meant to meet people in life.
Yeah.
And God puts you with people who you want to meet. And, I'm a big believer of the law of attraction, huge believer of that. And met Matt, said, right, when you're in Cardiff next, let's have a coffee, blah, blah, blah. Finds out that Matt is being mentored by Grant Cardone.
Wow.
And that's how we got all these big superstars to come to our events.
Just by relationship.
It's that, build a relationship. Matt, can you get Grant to come to the UK to share the stage with Lord Sugar? His fee is this. can we do a deal? Blah, blah, blah. We did the 10X tour in the UK, London, Scotland, Wales, and we did the deal. And he came for the first time, loved it, it was amazing. And that all came from me going to London, walk into a room, said hello to someone, where you from? I'm from there. But I think the biggest thing more than anything that is a learning tip for people when they go to these events is you follow up with these people. So
where you are now is that you got Presents, which is your company. And you've got the sporting club as well. So what does and then there's you're going for opportunity number 3, marriage number 3, aren't you?
Yes. So which question do you want to answer first?
Let's start with the first 2, and then we'll wrap up.
Okay.
Yeah. So what's next with Presents?
So Presents empowering world class connections, which I set up in 2021.
Yeah.
And I remember I did my first event with Jordan Belford online, and it was an amazing event. We tried to get Jordan to come to Cardiff, but we did it online. Brilliant event. And then my plan was to do my own events, my own interpersonal events with on my own, and then I took the role for the HPBA, which sort of delayed it a bit.
Yeah.
And then I've sort of come back to Presents.
Yeah.
And thought, well, you know what? I want to create something that is a little bit different to what I've done before. And Presents is creating unique opportunities where, something like, world-class events, which, like the Monaco Grand Prix, Silverstone, high-level events that I wanted to create for people to come to meet high-worth individuals.
Yeah,
and a different target audience to what I've done before. So, that's why I set up Presents. And then obviously I support the Sporting Club, which is one of the UK's biggest sporting networking organisations, which do celebrity sports people. This month we've got, amazing lineup with Gary Lineker and Colin Montgomery and Barry Hearn and, some amazing events.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, it's the only events company I've seen on the market, on the high streets, which is the same sort of credibility of how I do my own events. And those events are very professionally run. Some brilliant companies in there, made some amazing people there. We did Sir Alex Ferguson and Graham Souness the other month, 330 companies, amazing people there. And it's a great organisation, and I'm proud to be part of that as well, to encourage people to come there, network, and create opportunities.
And then within that you're doing deals. You're like trying to broker a few deals as well for high-end entrepreneurs.
So I'm in the investment world now.
Yeah.
So I'm doing property deals. I'm doing land deals for clients. I'm also in the movie world.
Yeah,
which
we're aware of. Yeah,
which we're raising 30 million for a movie with a list of stars. We've got a 7-movie production, a project lined up, which I'm project managing that as well.
Yeah, so we're helping, trying to bring in some people.
You're involved in that as well.
That.
So it's just diversing sort of, what I've learned, what I've done, and going into sort of, the investment world of investors and project managing different opportunities for clients. And also I'm also involved in the mentoring side of things, where I love working with companies to grow and expand and help people, achieve their goals for success.
And then obviously the last one is the connection, the marriage connection.
Yeah.
So you're getting married again?
Plan to get married next year.
Yeah.
Third time lucky. Met Emily, an amazing woman. I met her 4 years ago. She's a mum of 4 young children and 11.
Yeah.
So, I'm a proud stepdad to 4 young kids. So I've been there the second time with my kids, who are 36 and 33, 2 grandsons as well. So, but yeah, these are the good kids, and makes me feel young at heart. with the kids. But yeah, I've been very fortunate, and she's a beautiful girl, and very family orientated, and you know, I'm very, very supportive. You know, she supports me 150%, which is important.
Yeah,
especially you're in business.
Yeah.
You need someone who's got your back, who's going to support you night and day, and someone that trusts you and is there for you as well.
No, well, Paul, I know you're always a big giver of connections and that kind of stuff. You've been really helpful to us in our many business ventures, such as, you know, Cre8ion and Digital and Humans and all those wonderful things that we're involved with. So thank you for all your help. But if someone wants to reach out to you, where's best to get in touch?
You know, reach out to me on LinkedIn or Facebook, Instagram. My email address is Paul Smolinski 68@gmail.com. Just DM me if I can help you or introduce you to someone in my black book of great connections. Then, you know, I'd love to help people. Be connected to the right person.
Well, thanks so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's amazing to sort of like get the whole backstory, and people that don't know you now can find out your entire story. They're not going to be challenging you at pool or snooker now because they know that you're pretty good.
Well, yeah, I try to be. So.
Try to be.
Yeah.
And then, I'm amazed we haven't mentioned it, but we're both Liverpool fans as well, so we've had a good run at that as well over the course of last year.
Die-hard Liverpool fans, so we're there to the new era now, and can't wait for the new season.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to the Purpose People podcast. How you can help us is to like and subscribe our YouTube channel. You can also subscribe to our podcasts on Apple, Spotify, Google, and Amazon. That helps us get our message out there to help people go after their dreams, double down on it, and be successful in life on their terms.